like we looked a lot at Angela Carter. We looked a lot at the, Perrault in particular, because the Perrault versions of the fairy tales are quite nasty and quite sharp. He's a lot scarier than anything Quentin Tarantino could have come up with. So we looked a lot at that notion of dark fairy tales. The thing with Shadowskin, if you were going to go for tone, you're looking more at kind of Snow White and the Huntsman than Mirror Mirror, although we cannot unfortunately get a hold of Chris Hemsworth. I did try. So it is that notion of darkness and that notion of kind of savagery, which I think is why people are still interested in fairy tales even now. And of course another thing that we do look at is that notion of things that look like one thing but are actually something else. And I think if you want to stretch it, you can make an argument that that's what theatre is about as well. Think about it, you go into a darkened room, the lights come up with a willing audience and a good script, you can convince people that you're anywhere.
I'm going to ask you briefly just about the design concept for the show, because I have seen the concept sketches for the theatre company's logo and your design concept sketches for the show. So can you tell me about your influences?
Well, we looked at a lot of different people. It's a strange one. One of the big influences I have recently discovered, because a few people have said it to me, is actually Frank Miller, who's the gentleman who did Sin City. A lot of his stuff would have been, it's very, very sharp contrast. There's white, black, a little bit of colour. So there's a lot of that, because you're trying to get the maximum amount of effect with the minimum amount of detail. It's quite hard to do, and also some of it's quite flat, We looked an awful lot at silhouette artists. So one of the people I looked at was Jan Pienkowski. I would have read Jan Pienkowski's books as a child, particularly his fairy tales. He's a Polish illustrator, but he just does silhouettes. So a lot of the imagery would have been about silhouettes, and silhouettes of course are beautiful to look at, and you can make them very, very detailed, but they are very flat. So this thing, when I was an artist, because I started off as an artist, I used to have problems with perspective. So I have found a way around that makes it look like I'm not doing it on purpose. And the other person we looked at a lot was Harry Clark. Clark, of course, would have been an illustrator. He had some very famous fairy tale illustrations. That quite pointed, quite elongated look that you would never see people like that in real life, but there was something kind of hyper-real about them. And you see that in things like, you go into the Hugh Lane, you see the Eve of St. Agnes, which is an incredibly beautiful piece of work. I am not nearly as good as any of the artists that I just mentioned, but they were people that we looked at in terms of how we wanted the show to look. And also because the original idea was that we were going to do shadow puppets, and then marionettes, and then actors. So a lot of the stuff is about that thing of it looking flat. It's not looking 3D, it's looking 2D. And when you see the show, that makes sense. You'll understand why.
What exactly is the tone of the play?
Well, this is one thing that we do worry about now, because of course we pull up all the videos of myself and Sinead essentially trick acting as we made the puppets, because we had a great time making them. I think that shows. But the play itself is actually quite dark. If you look, the people I talked about, people like Angela Carter, people like Frank Miller, these are not exactly fluffy artists. So the play itself is very dark. It is about deception and how appearances don't actually necessarily reflect what's inside. And also the idea, can we make a very small female character look quite worrying and quite frightening? And you know what, to quote Barack Obama, yes, we can.
So no reflection on real life then?
No comment. With that final question, I will sign off. Thank you, Jennifer, for your questions and for holding the camera. And thank you to everybody who watched this. So I'll see you soon.